Top five, we're joined by Steven Johnson, Fort Worth Star-Telegram covering TCU. We saw at the Big 12 Pro Day up in Frisco, Sonny Dykes and a couple of others that were there watching the festivities, and thanks for your time, Steven. So what is the couple of things in particular, besides the obvious, that TCU needs to accomplish during spring football?
Well, I think the biggest thing for them is going to be emphasizing and installing this new defense under Andy Avalos, which has done, I think it's made a really strong first impression. They've gone through 6 practices so far. They're banged up on offense. No Josh Hoover. Got a starting receiver out. Guys like Savion Williams or John Paul Richardson have kind of been low managed, basically. So I think the biggest thing right now is you want to continue to see the defense play the way it's been playing, them installing more packages, different type of schemes and whatnot. So I think getting the defense with a head start would be the key, and you really want to get out of spring without any major injuries on offense, I believe.
So how do they get better without their starting quarterback in there?
Well, I think the good thing for them, at least on offense, is this is an opportunity, I think, for a lot of younger guys. There are a lot of guys in rotation right now, receiver guys that were maybe second or third team last year. So for me, I think it's been a refreshing, or it has to be refreshing for the players, I think. Hey, man, you got your opportunity. You're going up against the first team defense, second team defense. If you want to prove yourself, now is the time. They even had guys like walk-ons like Keegan Cunningham making plays in the spring and things like that. So I think for the offense, it's just about developing those younger guys. And the main thing is trying to find some type of synergy on the offensive line. I think that's the biggest question mark, aside from the defense as a whole. And on the defense, I mean, those guys have been flying around to the football. They look good. They don't look like a team that has a first-year defensive coordinator. So for them, it's just about getting tighter with chemistry. Offense, I think it's about developing some of those younger guys that had smaller roles last year.
Steven, what's the biggest difference from what Andy Avalos is trying to accomplish compared to what they were doing with Joseph Gillespie?
Oh, everything. Everything. You know, I want to say, like, Coach Gillespie obviously is a brilliant football mind, knows more football. He's forgotten more football than I know, but yeah. I think it's night and day what TCU is now doing. I don't want to get too much in the jargon, man, but I do get excited seeing this game. We're seeing more of a 4-2-5 look. Maybe you could even argue a bit of a 3-2-6 look, where he keeps your three standard defensive linemen, and that fourth edge rusher is kind of that hybrid. Different teams have different names for him: Buck, Star, Jack, whatever you want to call them. Basically, they have that fourth edge rusher now. And now he's gone from a 3-linebacker defense to a 2-linebacker defense. So I think his defense, they send guys from everywhere: corner blitzes, nickel blitzes, safety blitzes. They're doing stunts. I don't think they did any stunts last year on the defensive line. And even these last couple practices, they have a dime package, the 4-1-6, that's been causing a lot of havoc. So there's a lot more creativity. There's a lot more havoc. And I think TCU's defense will be in more positions. They're going to take more chances, of course, but I think they'll be in more positions to actually make plays as opposed to just reacting to them.
Steven, we had Jared Wiley, of course, veteran tight end who's headed to the NFL. Well, it appears he will, but he was with us at the Pro Day. We sat down with him, and we brought up a lot of the players they lost after the team that went to the national championship game. And he said he didn't think it was a lack of talent on the team last year, that he thought there was some leadership issues, and he was one of them. That, of course, being a fifth or sixth year guy. Did you think that it was mainly talent, or was it what he was mentioning?
No, I think it was definitely leadership. Honestly, if you go off 247 Sports as the team talent composite rankings, where they basically stack up your last 4 recruiting classes and rank the teams based on that, I want to say TCU's ranking was significantly higher last year than it was the year they made it to the national championship game. But you didn't have a Matt Duggan. You didn't have a Steve Avila. You didn't have a Quinn Johnson. You didn't have a Trey Hodges-Thomason. And I think even though you had guys like Josh Newton and you had guys like Andrew Coker trying to step up, there was definitely a big void in leadership. And I think that kind of bared out with how TCU struggled. 2 years ago, they were one of the best teams in the country in those one-score games. They always made a play. The defense could have been giving up 35 points. I bet you in the fourth quarter they're going to get a stop. They're going to sack. They're going to get a pick. And then last year, obviously, their fortune in one-score games completely flipped to the other end. Some of that is luck, but I think a lot of that is just kind of that leadership, how we saw Matt Duggan just put the team on his back, how we saw Trey Hodges-Thomason always come up with that key interception in the second half. So it was definitely leadership in my eyes.
Steven, the coaching staff has added Andy Avalos there on defense, and that's going to be different. Joe Gillespie now down here coaching at Midway. Is it going to be a different scheme or just a different way of looking at the scheme they want to run?
It's going to be a brand new, entirely different scheme. Last year, you got to think about it. TCU was in the 3-3-5 98% of the time, maybe with the exception of when you're inside the 5-yard line. I think with this defense now, man, you're going to see defenses where there's one linebacker on the field. They might have 3. They might rush 4. They might rush 5. They're going to have packages where they send 6 guys. And last year, really these last 2 years, it seemed like TCU never really wanted to send more than 4 guys. And even when they did send 4, you could tell that wasn't their specialty. That wasn't something they were necessarily comfortable with. So I think Avalos has a more attacking style of defense, which I think why the linebackers have to be a little bit more athletic. So brand new scheme, brand new philosophy as well.
What do you think Kendall Briles learned, I guess, last year, or what he takes away from last year in terms of what they try to apply this season and moving forward?
I think it's all about being better situationally for the offense. I think, they were top 25, top 30 in total yards per game. They could move the ball from the 20 to the 20, man. That offense, for the most part, was pretty good at moving the ball. But situationally, they just were not a good team. Some of that was they had a Chandler Morris struggle with turnovers, and then they had an inexperienced quarterback in Josh Hoover. Some of that was play calling. I think I remember a bunch of times where it's 3rd and short, 4th and short, and you see TCU calling some type of jet sweep going east-west as opposed to north-south. So I would hope that he understands a little bit more about picking his spots, picking when to be aggressive, when to try to be not cute, but when to try to be creative, and when sometimes, hey, man, we just got to line up and go right at these guys. So I think it was an encouraging first year, but overall, they got to be a lot better situation, especially in the red zone.
Steven, TCU has run the series against Baylor now for over a decade. There's been some wins, some huge ones, 61-58, double, triple, whatever, overtime, Charlie Brewer in 19 or whatever it was. But TCU owns the rivalry. What was, if anything, any kind of murmur or discussion when Baylor announced they were going to honor their Big 12 championship teams, and Gary Patterson will be on the Baylor sideline with Kendall Cos and also Carlton Buckles on the TCU staff?
Well, I think for the guys currently on staff, I don't think there's been much of a big deal because obviously they know those guys were at Baylor, but obviously with Gary it's different.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people it's just weird. There's less anger, vitriol because obviously he was at Texas last year, and I think that because he went there and then went to Baylor, it's like I guess he wants to stay in the Big 12 now. But it is there was a picture for one of the practices of him in Baylor gear. Even for me, that was different for me to see. So I think right now it's just a little bit strange for people. It's a little bit awkward. But obviously with him being at Texas the year before, it hasn't been as nasty as maybe it could have been a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's like, okay, let me take a tour. And he's a brilliant mind defensively, but let's take a tour of the teams that go back and play TCU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, and he's a great defensive mind. Obviously, he helped out Texas that first year. So I think people around Fort Worth get it. This is a guy that loves football and wants to be around. And at some point, man, the school colors, the allegiance, guys just want to work and be around football, whether they're at Baylor, Texas Tech, or TCU.
Yeah, and you can't say much when you've hired Kendall Briles.
No,
what are you going to say?
It's not like, we can do it, but my God, How can you take Gary Patterson? Yeah. So weird. You said weird or strange, and you are absolutely 100% correct on that. It's a very bizarre situation.
Are you